Webcast One Live, and thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together, and we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Mr. Favors Neighbors, bringing us back to our conversation. This segment of the show brought to you by Community CPA and Associates. Okay, we're talking guns here, folks, and you're welcome to join the conversation. I know there are folks on both sides of this issue, or maybe I should say all sides of this issue. You're welcome to join that conversation at 244-0077 or toll free. It's 855-244-0077. I don't even get the number out, and people are starting to call. I'll tell you something about guns, Carlos, that just brings them out. Anyway,
I guess so.
Let's talk about guns, and I want to talk about New York City. But first, breaking news today about the group of sheriffs, county sheriffs across the country, who say they they're suggesting that they would not allow federal officials to enforce laws they deem a violation of the Second Amendment. Okay, in Utah, there are 29 counties. 28 of the 29 sheriffs in Utah have sent a letter to the president saying it is, quote, foolish and prejudiced to demonize firearms and that malevolent souls were to blame for shootings like the one that killed 26 children. Okay, we can talk about whether it was malevolent souls or whether those malevolent souls would have had any ability to commit such a horrific crime if they hadn't had access to those weapons. But I want to, Carlos, jump into this conversation. Carlos Jane is a gentleman I've known for a long time, a retired Methodist minister, now with Iowans for Gun Safety, and somebody who has been paying attention to gun issues for a long time. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah.
What do you think of these sheriffs?
Well, I think they are putting themselves out there as constitutional experts, and I much prefer to have the members of the Supreme Court be the ones that we look to for such things. And in doing that, I wonder if they've forgotten the 2008 decision of the Supreme Court, whereas those people said, nothing in our opinion should be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws imposing conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms. So,
and where's that? So that
was in that decision, 2008, the one where they took the guns away, or they said they couldn't take guns away in District of Columbia. Yeah. So they backed up the Second Amendment, but they said that we can make changes. We can do things that will do some restriction on gun activity.
Okay. So it just seems like, I mean, the Constitution is sacred. Well, sacred is probably too strong of a word.
Right,
but
yes.
Too strong of a word, but is regarded, it is held in pretty high regard by people in all points on the political spectrum.
Should
and you have people championing it, sometimes for opposite reasons, and that seems like a good example here. I mean, I would say that the Constitution is pretty clear about where the authority on this lies, and for you to say we're just not going to obey the president, I mean, again,
they're overstepping their bounds.
Yeah,
they're overstepping their bounds. I much prefer our own sheriffs, especially Paul Fitzgerald, who talked out on the issue when he went to Washington.
Story County.
From Story County, and he talked to the president. He was on CNN talking about this whole gun issue and how he looks on it as being what he's pushing is the whole mental health problem, which he's facing every day.
Yeah, and
I prefer, and he's not talking about not obeying any directions that come down from on high.
Now, what do you think of the comment by a sheriff from Colorado? This is a Sheriff Lou Valerio. He's from Garfield County in Colorado. He made a public statement in a 2-page letter that reads, quote, "My right to own a so-called assault weapon," and then he puts in parentheses, "even though nobody can define what it is, for whatever legal reason I chose, is nobody's business, especially the government's." 2 questions about that, Carlos. Is his alleged lack of clarity on what is an assault weapon, is that accurate, or is he?
Well, I think he may have a point there. There's a lot of discussion about what is an assault weapon, and when they have an assault weapons ban, which we had once before for 10 years, they had so many exceptions to it that it was very hard to define. So he has a point there.
That was the Brady Bill.
Yeah, well,
Right.
the Brady Bill, that was right. That was part of
Okay.
that. And that didn't work because they had so many exceptions, and they need to be clear about it.
So and to be clear, you would say the Brady Bill didn't work not because a proposed ban on assault weapons was a bad idea, but because there were too many exceptions and perhaps
Exactly.
the definition wasn't clear
The
enough.
definition was not clear enough, yeah.
So, and again, I know there are folks who will say that, well, assault weapons were never envisioned by the framers of the Constitution, those who wrote the Second Amendment. And I know people, and again, I have friends on both. I have friends who own assault weapons who support a ban on them.
Yes.
I have friends who own assault weapons who argue that they are needed for one's protection. That part I have a hard time wrapping my mind around. It seems like there are, you could argue for I don't subscribe to this personally. I don't own a gun.
Yeah.
Now you all know that you can come rob me, but you can't find anything because I don't own much. But for those who do want to protect themselves, an assault weapon's probably not going to give you a lot more security than.
You'd probably be better off with a shotgun in your house rather than an assault weapon, because you got to point the assault weapon. You got to have a lot of practice with that. But that assault weapon thing you're talking about brings us to New York, because they are really trying to do something about the assault weapons in New York. In fact, they are requiring that those who own assault weapons now, they're not only banning the sale of them, but those who have them have to register them. And gun owners do not like to register their weapons.
Right. Well,
because that's more and more government control, but that's going to be a tough thing
but
for
I would
them.
say probably not all. I mean, I would say that probably some are okay with registering them.
Well, I think there is a reasonable group within the NRA and other gun owners associations that are pretty good with a lot of these things that have come up by the president, for instance.
Okay, now, and again, let me ask you about Iowans for gun safety. I imagine, again, my friends who own guns probably would be comfortable being members, some of them. I mean, but I would think, too, that even some of your hardcore NRA types would agree that an organization focused on gun safety was a good idea.
Well, I would think so. The problem we get into is that they're talked to so much about the hardcore that anything that's done to even sniff of safety or restriction is going to be something that's going to lead to taking their guns away from them. That's the problem we run into.
Yeah. Well, let me get back to the assault weapons question. Is there a way to adequately define assault weapons so that we could treat them differently than we treat guns that are used for protection?
Well, New York seems
hunting, for collecting.
to think that they have done that, but
Okay.
I haven't read that in detail. But I will bet you that it's going to be very hard to really implement it and keep it safe. The problem is that New York already has said that the problem is going to be people that are going to be trafficking guns into New York State if they do something about banning them in the state themselves. That will be a problem. Anything that we do should be done on a nationwide basis so that there's not the possibility of gun running from one state to another.
Folks, Carlos Jane, my guest here today on the Fallon Forum. You're welcome to jump in at 244-0077, 244-0077. And my email address, if you're afraid to take Carlos on voice-to-voice, I got an email address. It's fallonforum@gmail.com. Let's go to, who do we got, Maddie?
We have Frank on line 1 who wants to talk about guns and the desire to commit violent
Okay,
acts.
Frank, this is unusual, Frank. I'm going to take your call, even though we have other people on the phone. Frank, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ed.
But I am going to get right to the point so we can keep moving.
There's a lot of things the framers didn't envision. I could name a couple of them, but I'm sure you can probably guess what they are.
Okay.
We got a hostage situation going over in Alabama currently, where a guy shot a bus driver and took a 6-year-old hostage. I don't think there was a whole lot of shots fired. I guess my point to this is the amount of bullets, the gun is irrelevant to this conversation. If somebody is going to commit a horrific act, they have to have some desire to commit that horrific act. So if you confiscated every gun there is in the world, or every gun in the United States, does that stop the desire?
No, that doesn't stop the desire, and I don't think anybody's talking about taking all the guns in the country, because we know that whatever things that get put into place right now by whatever proposals are out there, that's not going to solve all the problem. Well, what it is a step in the right direction. If you do background checks on a universal basis, it's going to do something about slowing down the possibility of the wrong persons getting guns.
Well, like you said earlier, my concern is that these accumulative effects, we're not going to see it immediately. Charles Krauthammer said these 23 executive orders are a whole lot about nothing. There's no real bite in them. But what happens the next go around, and we have to have 23 more?
Well, Frank, let me pause you right there and see if Carlos. I'm suspecting he might not agree with you that those provisions by the president amount to nothing. Carlos?
Ed,
Well, they don't amount to nothing. It's not that they don't amount to nothing, but it will be a very slow process. Anything that you put into place will be a very slow process. One of the best things that we could possibly do would be to increase the effectiveness of our mental health system. But how long is that going to take? It's going to take a long time, but if we don't do anything, nothing will ever change. All we will do is go backwards, because right now the NRA, even after Newtown, is still putting out all these egregious pieces of legislation across the nation in the various states that they feel they have an opportunity to do. Right now, they want a bill in Iowa to have this stand your ground legislation where anybody can take a gun out on the street and act as a vigilante. They want to have a constitutional amendment which would do away with any kind of background checks at the state level or any permits or anything. So the NRA and the gun lobbies are continuing to push more and more gun rights, more proliferation of guns. But if we don't start something about moving it back a bit and moving back the possibility of the wrong person getting the guns, nothing will ever happen.
Well, I'm about the wrong people not having the guns. But did you hear about the sheriff in Wisconsin whose police force is being cut? He's suggesting that you arm yourself.
He's suggesting to the populace that they arm themselves?
There's a sheriff up in Wisconsin who says his police force is being cut, his budget's being cut severely, and there's going to be 20.
So once the populace in that county or that city get
I think that's a budgetary move he's trying there. He's trying to force the hand of the people that control his budget. He's saying, I'm going to arm all the people in the county if you don't give me the budget I need to have the proper officers. That's what I would say. That's a political thing.
Pitchforks and torches for all, I say. Hey, Frank, thanks for the call.
Ed. Thank you.
Appreciate the call. 244-0077. Got an open line if you guys want to join the conversation. Let's go to Kim. Hello, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Ed.
Hey.
I have a couple of comments. I see that Mr. Lanza had flunked the background check prior to the shooting in Connecticut. I certainly think that gun safety is important, so I assume that Mr. Jane then is going to support offering gun safety classes in the school and in the scouting program so children learn to handle firearms and use them properly.
Well, I'm all for gun safety courses. I'm not sure that they should be done in those settings. That's something I'd have to look at as to how it's done, and the parents would have to be involved in that sort of thing as well. But there are things that you could teach them about how to save themselves in a certain situation. I'm not sure they need to be knowing how to handle firearms at an early age, too early of an age.
Well, and again, Boy Scouts would be one thing. That's more. That's a
They have
Boy
that,
Scouts can
yeah.
kind of do what they want. They can teach gun safety, or they can, I guess, prevent gays
yeah.
from being members. But public education, that's a different thing. It seems like there's very limited opportunities. I mean, we have so many, so few hours of education already. Once you get done with the basics, what are the priorities? And
Yeah, you can teach. There are safety courses where you don't actually have to handle the guns, and I think there is something to that where they can teach them about firearms.
Like trying to swim without actually getting in the water.
Well, we're not teaching. We don't want to teach them how to handle a gun and get a gun and be ready to be a vigilante. We want to teach them what are the problems with guns and how to keep them safe and that sort of thing. Maybe there is some little handling of it. I don't know, but I think if a family has hunting in it, they've got to teach their kids how to be safe hunters and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. How many people in Connecticut were killed with assault guns?
Well,
I'm not even sure. I think this is a trick question, Kim. I don't believe assault weapons were actually used in that killing.
Well, it was, it would be. It's like an automatic. I mean, 26 of them were killed, weren't they? I mean, wasn't that an automatic weapon? Or what are you trying to get at here, Kim?
An automatic weapon is one that you pull the trigger once and it continues.
Well,
to fire.
Okay. Well,
a semi-automatic weapon is for each fire you have to pull the trigger.
It may have been semi-automatic, but he was pretty fast at it. He had a lot of experience on the shooting range, but the trouble was he was deranged.
Absolutely, and that's the big issue is you have these people who are deranged, and we really need research into what these people are doing and why they're doing it and how they slip through the cracks.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I know the NRA agrees with that, and everybody should be pushing for the resources that are necessary. But sometimes the same people
they shouldn't be on the street.
Well, yeah, we got a lot of work.
But still, I think all that makes sense.
People, they should not.
That doesn't mean that you shouldn't cut down on the amount of guns that are out there and available to these people. It should go hand in hand. The easy availability of the guns to the persons who shouldn't have them in the first place. And the NRA this morning, the NRA said this morning on the hearings that they had before the Senate that they're against the background checks. If you're against the background checks, then you're against possibly getting the people out of gun ownership that shouldn't have them. What's the deal with that?
Lonzo flunked his background check. He still got guns, and he committed several felonies by the time he arrived at the school.
Yeah.
Well, you're saying Lanza flunked background checks and still was able to get the weapons because his mother did not have them secured.
I don't know whether I don't know about that.
What's that, Kim?
But he killed her to get the guns. I've got a friend who was a cop in Chicago, and he said they would go out every Friday and bust these guys. And they'd have guns, and they were illegal, and they were felons, and they'd put them in the slammer. And Monday they'd be out, and Friday they'd bust them again with a new gun that they still got illegally, that they're still felons, and it's the same guys, and it was just a rotating door. So how are you going to fix that? Because they're getting the guns illegally, and you're putting a burden on me as a legitimate law-abiding citizen to protect myself by restricting my ability to purchase guns.
No, your ability isn't restricted as long as you're someone who qualifies. Where's the restriction? I mean, in Iowa, you can buy just about anything you want to.
Okay, but you've got criminals are not following the same laws that we're following.
Well, that's another thing we've got to do. We've got to start more enforcement, and that's one of the things those 26 or 17 executive orders of the president was talking about. He wants more enforcement, and I agree that there should have been all along more enforcement.
Okay. One thing to think about, if you limit the size of the magazines, then they're just going to get more magazines. I can get eight shots in my pistol. And if you outlaw those, I'll just get 4 6-shotters. I can still get 24 shots, and you can switch a magazine out pretty quickly. So that still is going to stop the illegal people from being able to hammer away at somebody. Yeah,
you got to start somewhere, though.
Yeah, well, thanks for the call, Kim. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Kim.
Yeah, Carl, let me ask you this quick question real quick, Carlos. I am of the belief that we need to do something about media violence as well. I think everybody tends to agree that mental health is an issue, that we need to do more to help folks who are struggling. The big debate over guns, But when it comes to the entertainment issue, in entertainment industry, I think there's a lot of division about what to do there too. I personally feel that even though I'm a big advocate for the First Amendment, there are things that we should be able to say, okay, this is inappropriate. I mean, we do that with radio. On radio, you can't say the 7 words that George Carlin talks about. You do, and you get a $10,000 fine. We take that very seriously. And that's pretty mild compared to some of the horrific violence you see on the movies. Right. I'm of the mind that we ought to be doing something to regulate that violence.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what it is other than having the bully pulpit of the president bring these people in and talk about that. Bring them into the White House. Sometimes when you have a big talk about that, to get people in a room, sometimes they decide there is something to do about it. I mean, people have been on Tarantino for the violence in his movies, and maybe he'll calm that down. I don't know, because there's only a limited amount of what you can do in a free country like ours. But I think holding your support from something, or as the president says, should say, let's calm this down, people. I mean, I don't know what else you can do. I'm all for it, but I don't want to do is to lay it all on the media, as some of the gun lobby is doing, and say, let's do something about this first before we do anything about guns.
And I agree. I agree that they are right to criticize the media, but I think that if they're just trying to distract attention from their own responsibility, that troubles me. Let's take one more call before we got to go to a break. Let's go to Michael. Hello, Michael.
Yeah. Hey, Ed. How you doing?
Good. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is exactly what you've been talking about, and that's the question of media violence. I'd like to let your listeners know that there is, and viewers know that there is, on the White House website for petitions, there is a new petition just up this morning that asks the president to address media violence as a cause of gun violence. And that's something that it's easy to do. Just sign the petition.
Now, he did not do that, and his proposal was entirely focused on guns. My impression is that Carlos, my guest, might I don't know, where would you stand on that, Carlos? Do you think there's anything the government should or can do regarding media violence?
Well, I think you could have, for instance, if the Congress were to hold hearings and bring out some of this and question some of these people as to why they do it, and the president bring them all in and have a meeting and say, let's do something about this. Everybody has to contribute to this problem. What could you do to cut down on the violence in the things that you produce? Why not do that? That's
you're asking for voluntary compliance,
I don't
right?
think there is anything we can do by law.
See, and I disagree. And Michael,
I don't know. If there is something, I'm for it. What would it be?
Michael,
tell me, Ed.
All right, Michael, I mean, are you of the mind that it's got to be more than a voluntary compliance thing? That we've got to actually do something.
What could they do, Mike?
Well, part of the problem is the president did bring these people in, and the people in media were a part of the meetings that Joe Biden organized.
Yeah.
The problem is that political campaigns take place in largely in media venues.
Yeah.
Media. It's very difficult for politicians to address the problem of media violence simply because so much of our politicking, so much of the campaigning, electioneering takes place in media venues. So
you got it right there.
It's not just a legal problem. It's not so much a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment is about giving people the right to speak out. It's not about protecting the rights of huge corporations, huge media corporations, which have enormous power, political power, to flood the nation's airways with socially destabilizing, violent media products.
So let me ask you this, Michael. That petition that you referenced, the one that is being circulated and hopefully delivered to the president, does that call for any specific actions, or is it very broad?
It's broad. It does ask the president to call for reasonable restrictions on violent media content that incites violence in society.
Right.
Okay, well, if there's a way to do that through legislation, I would be for that, because that's what we need to do. And you're right about money coming from the media. A lot of times, I guess, the president would get more money from Hollywood than the other side. But on the other, there are an awful lot Congress people that are getting a whole lot of money from the NRA and the other gun lobby people. So you got a real problem there on both sides. But I agree that pressure should be put on the media, whether it's through bills or maybe just the threat of legislation or something, to tone things down in our movies and internet and everything.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
That was
Thank
good.
you, Ed.
Appreciate
for
it.
all you do.
And Carlos, thank you for coming into the studio on a cold, snowy day. You did pretty well getting here in the weather.
My wife delivered me.
Well, good. I delivered myself with a great pair of boots, but I'm only a mile away. So thanks, folks, for that conversation. We're going to be back. When we come back, I want to talk about Brad Zahn's bill banning traffic cameras. I saw this just today and wrote to Brad. He'd like to join us, can't, but he would be willing to come on the show at some other time. So we may talk with him later. But I want to take a second to thank Community CPA and Associates for sponsoring this segment of our show. Community CPA is an accounting firm at 3816 Ingersoll Ave in Des Moines. They're my accountant. Yingsaw has done my taxes for a long time. I cannot tell you how much I hate having to do my own taxes. I even hate having to compile all the receipts and stuff. That drives me crazy. But I get to do that part and then have somebody with a clue take it from there. And she and her staff absolutely have a clue. Check them out, folks. Community CPA and Associates on Ingersoll Ave. We'll be back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned right here in Ames.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito in their new location at 117 Welch Avenue by Iowa State. Online fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
This is Dr. Holding, the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35, 515-232-8766.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Max Wellman, folks. The Max Wellman Trio bringing us back to our final segment here. And if you have not yet purchased tickets to either of the two Valentine's Day concerts, your significant other is going to be really, really pissed. So you better do that. MaxWellmanMusic.com. Tickets are 7 p.m. Tickets for concerts are 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. and tickets are only $10. I mean, come on, cheapskate. Go out there and get your date a nice evening with Max Wellman on Valentine's Day. Also, I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. And I want to talk a little bit about Brad Zahn's traffic camera bill. And I hope to have Brad on this show to talk a little bit about this. This is not an issue that I want to spend a heck of a lot of time on, but it is of interest to a lot of people. And it is a kind of a very compelling conversation locally. Of course, and you've got folks on broadcast radio that are all for this 100%. I have to admit to having somewhat mixed feelings about it. I do not like it when local governments, basically are seeing this as a cash cow. Part of me says, as a bicyclist, the more you can milk out of automobiles, the better. The more you can get from the people who drive every day, go for it. The mischievous part of me says that. Of course, I also drive, so I've not yet been bagged by a traffic camera or by one of the mobile units, but it could happen, and I hear it can be fairly expensive. And there are lots of reasons why people have trouble with these, obviously. But what bothers me is, Brad, is that I don't think this is the realm of state government. I don't see why state government needs to come in and say, sorry, no traffic cameras. Again, if it's a problem, I mean, the more we can keep government close to local people, the better. If you don't like the traffic cameras, run people for city council who are going to get rid of them. Run people for the board of supervisors who are going to get rid of them. If it's that important to you, then go out there and find candidates who are going to get rid of the cameras in your community. Again, the problem is that, again, these things have become a cash cow. Local governments are making a bunch of money zapping people with increased, with more frequent and more expensive traffic violations. It's going to be hard for governments to say, ooh, we're going to get rid of these and a whole bunch of revenue at the same time. And maybe they make the argument, well, we'll be happy to get rid of these traffic cameras, but we're going to have to raise your property taxes to make up for the difference. Who knows what argument will come out. But right now, I mean, you would think that with as many people upset about traffic cameras as there are, at least in some of the, especially in some of the smaller communities, it would be more easy to get rid of these things. Apparently, it's not happening. Again, I think it's a revenue issue. And the other thing is, it's not just the city generating revenue for the services it delivers. There is a corporate element to this as well, because these traffic cameras are by and large operated by a private company. And what we haven't had a lot of conversation about, and maybe because it's new enough where there's not a lot to know, what is the connection between that private company and the city council members? Are there campaign donations flowing from one to the other? I don't know. It's a really good question that I hope somebody can answer. I don't have the answer, but let me refer to the article today. This is in the Register. They talks about how automated traffic enforcement cameras would be banned statewide under this bill introduced by Brad Zahn, and he's of course from Urbandale, a Republican, and name is being mentioned as a possible U.S. Senate candidate. Senate File 19 would require the removal of existing traffic law enforcement cameras by July 1, including Des Moines, Windsor Heights, Cedar Rapids, other Iowa communities. Zahn says, quote, I have heard from more and more Iowans on this. I think my support for this is growing rather than shrinking. Everywhere I go, people are talking to me about this. Well, again, I guess what I have trouble with is people want less government. They want less central government. They want more control in their own communities. Well, this goes the other direction. And I don't get why people feel that makes sense when they're so much against other types of other initiatives where they want government out of their lives. Okay, similar legislation was approved last year in the Republican-controlled House, but died in the Senate. And that's where Zahn is, of course. So Zahn's efforts to introduce an amendment to the bill were ruled out of order. He will face opposition on this issue from, of course, Mike Gronstall, Gronstal recently told reporters that city officials in Council Bluffs, which has had the cameras for several years, have shown him data suggesting the devices have dramatically reduced crashes and serious injuries. Now, that's a really good point. I mean, I would not mind seeing this come up for a vote, to be honest with you. But I think Gronstal makes a good point. The data I have seen as well is pretty hard to refute. This is causing a decline in traffic accidents, serious injuries, and even fatalities. Okay, so Governor Branstad, on the other hand, pledged last year to sign a ban on automated traffic cameras. And Bradzon said he expects that there will be bipartisan support for that proposal if Gronstal will permit a vote on it. And again, I would probably vote against it. I would vote against the ban because, again, I don't think it's the role of the state government to tell local governments what to do. But, if Gronstal's not going to bring it up, and again, I don't know where Senator Yoakum stands on this. She is now the other power broker in the Senate. But if they decline to bring it up, then we will not know. Zahn, he recognizes that the bill faces an uphill battle, and again, largely because of Gronstal. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes and what happens next. Because, again, what interests me most about this is the tension between local control and bigger government control. In this case, big government is not the feds, but the state government. And a lot of us feel that the more we can control things at the local level, the better. But, that tends to break down for some people on this issue, including Brad Zahn. So I hope to have Senator Zahn on my program to talk about that. I will say this. I wrote him this morning. He responded right away. I wrote back. He responded again. I really respect and appreciate that because there are a lot of senators, a lot of politicians that I can't get boo out of, even people that I consider friends and fellow travelers. If you're not going to respond to constituents and to people in the media, I don't care where you are at on the issues, you're not going to have my support. If you ignore people's, calls for, discussion, if you fail to respond to their questions, I'm going to start naming names too before we get too much further into the session. Because again, I get really, really ticked off at lawmakers who think they have no obligation to respond to people's comments, questions, and in some cases, criticism. All right. I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. Fighting Burrito is where I am having lunch today, and you should too. $6.50 for a big honking burrito that you get to design yourself. Fighting Burrito is in the Nationwide building on 13th Street, just south of Locust Avenue. The owner, very creative, not just in terms of what he lays out for food options, but in terms of how he presents his vision for the business. Check them out, folks. Fighting Burrito at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. I want to thank Maddie Arrington, my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for supplying the studio for the show. Remind you to stay tuned for Bradshaw. Is Bradshaw going to be in today, Maddie? Do we even know? He's not going to be in? What a weenie. Bradshaw, if you were watching my show, I am disgusted with you. You don't deserve to call yourself a progressive. If you were too progressive, you would have been walking down here. You would have started walking down here at 9 this morning. Okay. Enough of that. You can also hear the show, by the way, on Stitcher. You can also like my Facebook page because my other page is filled. So go ahead, like my Facebook page, and I'll keep in touch with you about developments on this program. You can also listen to the Fallon Forum on KHOI 89.1 on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. And you can subscribe to my email updates. I'll keep you posted in advance, the very, very start of the week, as to what's going to be happening on the show. So again, thanks, folks, for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow at 12 noon.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I am administrative mmanager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.